Hello, this is another discussion around intelligence gathering that we want to look at. Previously, we looked at what is meant by intelligence. We also looked at the methods of gathering intelligence and also the types of intelligence information that is normally gathered and used by the intelligence community. Today, we want to focus on a different aspect of intelligence, and this is what we call intelligence gathering process. What is it that the intelligence gathering activities entail? What are the processes? What are the stages? What is it that is done in each stage? And how important is each stage of intelligence gathering to the final intelligent information that is obtained, as well as its usage in terms of providing security and also preventing criminal activities from going out of hand. So we want to look at intelligence gathering process. I want to welcome you to this area of our discussion. We want to start by understanding again once more what is meant by intelligence gathering. Intelligence gathering, as we noted, is the process of collecting, analyzing, and evaluating information to understand a subject or situation, many times with the goal of informing decision making. The gathering is therefore a process that also involves collecting information and turning it into intelligence, and it involves collaboration between different agencies. In other words, several agencies are engaged in the process of gathering intelligence, as well as processing it and also utilizing it in terms of putting down processes or programs that are aimed at enhancing a country's security or deterring criminal activities from occurring in a country or from occurring in a region. But we can also understand it as a process of developing raw information into finished intelligence for policymakers to use in decision making and action. In other words, what we mean by intelligence is basically information that we normally interact with on a daily basis. However, that information to the ordinary citizen might not account to intelligence or amount to intelligence. It has to be processed and interpreted by personnel in the intelligence agencies for it to see how important it is in terms of making a country safe and also combating issues that deal with crime. And it encompasses a series of interconnected phases. That is, the process of intelligence gathering has several series, and these phases are interconnected. In other words, one builds into the other, and one strengthens each other, and each is contributing to the final output. We all strive for valuable and reliable intelligence. So these processes, they're important because each builds onto the other, and also it enhances chances of the intelligence gathering process delivering intelligence information that is both important and reliable. These are therefore the processes that intelligence gathering goes through. The first one is called the planning process or the planning phase. And the planning phase basically involves determining issues that need to be addressed and their prioritization by policymakers in the Directorate of Intelligence. In other words, what kind of issues are affecting the country's intelligence sector, the country's security sector, and the country's criminal justice sector. So that is the first thing that needs to be done at this stage. You have to determine the issues that need more information in terms of intelligence information need to be addressed. It also involves at this stage identification of the objectives of intelligence gathering. That is, what is the purpose of intelligence gathering? Because intelligence gathering is not just an activity in its end. Is the objective to control crime? Is the objective to secure the country? Is the objective to enhance, say, participation in development? Or is the objective just meant for the government to understand what citizens are thinking about a given issue? So that intelligence is not just about protecting, rather for purposes of crime and security alone. Even certain government initiatives, the feelings and perception of such initiatives on the part of the citizens becomes necessary, so that policymakers can now use public sentiments or citizen sentiments to make appropriate adjustments and changes that enhances the successful implementation of government policies. So intelligence gathering there must be objectives first identified. The other thing that also has to be done is what kind of information needs to be gathered. It is impossible to gather everything. So once the objective of intelligence gathering process is established, then an understanding has to be established in terms of what kind of information do we need to gather. And therefore, that becomes an important aspect of planning the intelligence gathering program or activity. You can't collect all the information because the information can be bulky, and therefore an element of precision in terms of the kind of information collected becomes important. And that is why there has to be a determination in terms of what kind of information will be gathered. And again, how will such information gathered be utilized? What is the purpose of the information? Once we get this information, how will it be utilized? You have found, for instance, that say citizens, students are not happy about the new university funding model. So the question is the information that you have gathered with regard to public disaffection about, say, the new funding model. How is that information going to be utilized? Is it going to be utilized to reform the model, to revise the model, or is it going to be utilized to throw away the model, or is it going to be utilized to implement the model as it is? So a determination has to be made in terms of the kind of information that, or rather how the information that is gathered is going to be utilized. It's also at this stage in which resources needed for intelligence gathering is identified and the appropriation is discussed. In other words, what kind of resources do we need? Is it, if it is personnel, if it is money, if it is technology, what kind of information, or rather what kind of resources do we need, and where do we source for that resources? What is the source of such resources? So all this takes place at the planning stage. The other important stage that entails, or rather another important phase of intelligence gathering process is the data collection stage. And this is the gathering of the raw information needed to produce finished intelligence. And we noted the other time when we were looking at methods of intelligence gathering that the collection phase might include gathering information from various sources. We have human sources, we have signals and intelligence sources, we have imagery intelligence sources, and also we have open source intelligence. All these are possible areas from which we can collect intelligence information. What is important now, again, here is that each source provides unique insights, and intelligence professionals employ various techniques and methods to acquire this kind of information. We need to know that none of these sources of information is 100% efficient or effective. Some might be good in terms of gathering certain types of intelligence information needed, others might not. And therefore, a combination of various sources of intelligence gathering might be utilized if comprehensive, reliable, and adequate intelligence information is to be gathered. That becomes quite important. This phase again, there are certain challenges that might come in regarding how reliable is a source of information that has been provided. Say it is open source intelligence, information that is open in the media, people's sentiments in publics, in social places, among others. How reliable is such information? The other thing that also needs to be looked at is the accessibility of such information. Such information might be difficult to access, and even the access might require a lot of planning and also deployment of a lot of resources. So it is important that all these are gathered and information that is obtained so that we do not seek to collect data, to collect intelligence information whose accessibility becomes problematic. Again, there are also issues of ethics. So we must also have serious ethical considerations when you're collecting intelligence information to ensure that we are not accused or intelligence gather process does not infringe on people's privacy, people's right of consent, and again, fabrication of data. So that at the end of the day, we want information that is reliable, information that is not copied, and information that is not manipulable or manipulated information, because all these they constitute to what we call efficient, effective, and reliable intelligence information. It should be noted that the kind of intelligence information that is delivered might determine how successful the actions that intelligence information is used to be undertaken succeeds or not. Once intelligence information has been collected, it has then to be processed. And processing refers to the conversion of vast amount of information collected during intelligence gathering to a form that is usable by analysts through decryption, language translations, and even data reduction. So that whatever information that has been collected, it has been processed. And sometimes the people who collect intelligence information might not be the ones that process them, because processing sometimes require certain expertise that may not be present in the field officers that are collecting the intelligence information. So once the field officers have collected intelligence information, that information has to be processed. And processing it simply entails converting the amount of information that has been received into a form that can be used. And this, I've said, it is done by analysts through three main methods. One, decryption, language translation, and data reduction. By decryption, we mean the process of converting encrypted data into readable format, while data reduction is a process of simplifying large amounts of data while keeping the most important information. It's like providing summaries of data so that thematic issues that emerge from the intelligence from the data collector still remains, but reducing that information to a form that is simple to understand and also takes relatively shorter time to be read and be digested. Now, the processing as a step in that intelligence gathering process may also involve processing imagery, decoding images, decoding other messages, translating broadcasts, preparing information for computer processing and storage, or retrieval and placing human source reports into a form and context to make them understandable. In other words, when you talk about processing, for instance, there are people who are able to translate images. There are people who are able to translate images, whether and therefore in that process they have to be taken to specialists in the reading of messages so that they are able to tell what they can see and therefore interpret that information to policymakers. Again, decoding messages also becomes quite important as well as translating them. For instance, maybe certain words or information were uttered in native languages and therefore such information might now need to be translated into national languages, and the translation must retain the original meaning without necessarily interfering with, without distorting the original meaning of the information. Because, like I said, it is also unethical for intelligence officers to translate information into a language that completely distorts the meaning. Because if the information is distorted, then the actions that are taken based on the information, intelligence information gathered, might actually not be accurate. Again, might also require preparing information for computer processing. Again, this one is done by the specialists in a particular field. The other important aspect of intelligence gathering is called analysis. Analysis refers to the conversion of and transformation of basic information into finished and actionable intelligence. This is done by analysts who are subject matter specialists, and they consider information reliability, validity, and relevance. They then generate them into a coherent whole. So it's also an important area that need to be looked at. They employ several analytical tools and techniques to interpret information, identify patterns, and draw meaningful conclusions. The aim of analysis is to establish the significance and implications of process intelligence, as well as to identify collateral information and patterns. For example, it is important at this level that information that is gathered through intelligence gathering process is obviously bulky, and on the surface of it might not provide any clue as to what is impending and what kind of action is necessary. So, analysis simply implies that the information that is gathered upon processing is being converted and transformed into a finished product. The product that is finished can then be used to make certain decisions. Otherwise, any information that's available that is not finished cannot be acted upon. So when we talk of analysis, we simply mean that stage in intelligence gathering process in which the intelligence officers or directorate now looks at the information and then they ask themselves, what is it that we are able to draw for this information? And what action can we take based on the kind of inferences that we make from the information? The other important area in intelligence gathering process is what we call dissemination. And this is normally the second last stage in terms of the actual phases of intelligence gathering. But it is not the final of it, because the final of it is evaluation. And the final phase of the intelligence cycle involves disseminating intelligence to relevant decision makers. It should be noted here that the Directorate of Intelligence does not just collect information for its own use only. No. The information gathered is shared with appropriate agencies, departments, and institutions so that those institutions can take measures to ensure that any threat that has been identified is controlled. And when we talk of dissemination, we refer to the sharing of finished intelligence with policymakers, military leaders, and other senior government officials for decision making. And finished intelligence is hand carried daily to the heads, president, and the key national security advisors. I want to repeat that intelligence information is delivered on hard copies, signed by the Directorate of Intelligence personnel and also the recipient of the information. You cannot deliver intelligence information via email or as a parcel or as a parcel. No, it has to be hand delivered. Dissemination of information may also involve tailoring intelligence to specific audiences, as well as presentation of information in a format that aligns with their needs and preferences. For instance, the kind of intelligence information that is given to the president might not be the same that is given to, say, parastatal heads or other security agencies. It is because each state institution or agency might require certain intelligence information might be relevant to them, others might not be. And that is why specific intelligence information is packaged in a manner that resonates with the duties and responsibilities of various officers so that they may know the kind of intelligence information within their docket and use it to make decisions based on the kind of advice that has been advanced based on the intelligence by the Directorate of Intelligence, so that the same intelligence gathered might be of use to different stakeholders, different audiences in different ways. So it is a work of the Directorate of Intelligence to ensure that the kind of intelligence information that is delivered is tailored to the needs, functions, and roles of various government agencies and personnel. Lastly, intelligence information should be disseminated in timely and secure manner to ensure prompt and appropriate decisions. It should be noted that if information is not delivered in time, say it delays by a day, a delay in the delivery of intelligence information can lead to catastrophic consequences. For instance, if say there is intelligence information that there's a planned terrorist attack on a given facility, the delay in the dissemination of that information to the relevant agencies for them to organize their responses can actually lead to the actual attack, because it means that it gives the terrorist organizations time to plan and therefore strike before the authorities are prepared to deter such strike. And that is why prompt and timely delivery or dissemination of intelligence information becomes critical. Lastly, the intelligence gathering process ends with what we call evaluation. And this is normally the last stage of what we call intelligence gathering cycle. We call it a process, sometimes we call it a cycle. A cycle in the sense that once it ends, again it begins. One phase gives way to the other phase. The end phase gives way to the beginning phase. So evaluation is the end stage of the intelligence gathering cycle. By evaluation, we mean the systematic assessment of the design, implementation of a policy, a strategy, or other undertaking. With regard to intelligence gathering, evaluation may refer to the process by which general judgments about quality, goal attainment, program effectiveness, impact, and cost of the intelligence gathering and implementation. Evaluation involves measuring the degree to which the goals of the intelligence policy or programs have been achieved and suggesting necessary changes to the program or strategy. Evaluation is done once intelligence information is disseminated and proposals have been made, proposals made have been operationalized through the formal adoption of laws, the rules or regulations, and the bureaucracy to determine if the strategy has achieved the desired outcome or impact. From time to time, Intelligence Directorate has an intelligence strategy of dealing with threat, strategy of promoting an idea, and strategy of enhancing a country's security. So the issue is, how successful has a given strategy been in terms of achieving certain objectives? The only way to understand or ascertain the extent to which strategies have worked or not worked is through evaluation. And when evaluations are undertaken, it offers the Director of Intelligence the opportunity to understand where it has succeeded, the challenges it is facing, and what needs to be changed in order to make the policies effective and therefore efficient. So evaluation is an important area in intelligence gathering. There are various methods that intelligence community use to evaluate the impacts of various intelligence strategies. That would be a subject of discussion another time. Otherwise, at this stage, we are just focusing on evaluation as a stage in the intelligence gathering cycle or intelligence gathering process. So I want to thank you so much for your time, and I want to ask you to note down any information that you deem needs further elaboration or discussion. Thank you so much.